Maybe back door, maybe fall off. Sipping codeine cause I gotta kill a cough. Let me sit sideways in the big Benz. Oh, you boys, they my brothers, they my friends.
There's the blitz. Touchdown, Lehman. Touchdown, Oklahoma. Williams got him on the blitz. Lehman on the pick. OU is going to win it again. Peterson's got it. He's got first down and more. High step and touchdown. Adrian Peterson. Baker Mayfield. Kyler Murray. Jalen Hurts. Touchdown.
You're listening to Brandon Drumm,
It's all good, OU fans.
Colin Kennedy,
Oklahoma has the guys once Saturday arrives.
and Parker Thune.
This looks like the year where it's all going to come together for the Sooners.
This is the OU Insider Under the Visor podcast.
Welcome to another OU Insider Under the Visor Sooners podcast. My name is Brandon Drumm, here with Parker Thune, and we are here to talk some Oklahoma spring football, recruiting, what have you. It's been a busy week for everybody. I know 7-on-7 is going on this week in Dallas. There's 7-on-7 all over, I think, in Kansas City. There's a 7-on-7 tournament. There is some camps that are starting to kick off. It's about to be a busy time for OU Insider and 247 Sports. Spring game, what is it, 17 days away
17
from now. And 17 days, and they're asking everybody to pack the house. So I don't think we wouldn't be doing everybody justice if we didn't bring that part up, that everybody's asking you all to be there, packing the house, showing everybody, I guess, what OU's about as far as the fandom goes. And we know you guys are great fans because you guys listen to our podcast all the time. And so it's truth, right? I mean,
it is truth.
So
it is truth.
Yeah. So anyways, yeah. Parker, how you been, man? I know spring has been quite busy for everybody. I'm just now getting back from after just an ass kicking of a health debacle, but
yeah, I tell you what, I've done a lot of driving this spring, to the point where, man, I took my car into the shop today, and I was like, hey, something's up, just need y'all to check it out, let me know. They call me back a few hours later and they're like, yeah, nothing's wrong with your car. It's like, dang, have I just been on the road that much that I've started overthinking and creating car problems in my head? But no, I went Norman to Kansas City to Dallas and back to Norman. That was quite the triangular trip this past weekend. So that's about 16 hours on the road. I'll be back up in Kansas City again this weekend. So yeah, very much looking forward to having Easter weekend to just lay low before we get the spring game the following weekend, which is going to be a ton of fun, Brandon.
Well, I don't get spring weekend to lay low because, and I'm not complaining. I'll tell you that. Oh,
yeah, it kind of sounds like you're complaining, Brandon.
I'm sorry. I just realized the Montreal Expo hat on you. Touche, man. And if people don't know what that's about, somebody made a joke on, it was either the last YouTube live or a couple of YouTube lives ago or one of the podcasts, I can't remember. And they made a comment of Parker's age and does he even know who the Montreal Expos are? Because when he was born, I don't know that, were they even around?
Yes,
when you were born?
They moved to Washington to become the Nationals in 2005. I've had this hat forever.
Okay.
And so I think when I decided to switch it out on my little set here, switch out the Dodgers hat, which is a Justin Turner game worn hat from like the 2013 playoffs or something like that. Switch it out with the Expos hat. I think that's where the Expos comment came from.
Well, if you didn't know, oh no, it's Toronto Blue Jays. Never mind. Well, did he play for?
Who? What?
I'm trying to think. There's a famous Oklahoman from Millwood, Joe. In the Hall of Fame, and I can't even think of his name now. He's the one that won the World Series back in like '93 or something like that. I can't remember if he played for the Expos.
No,
is it
Blue
Joe
Jays.
Gordon?
Joe Carter.
No, not Joe Gordon.
Joe Carter.
Joe Carter.
That's who it is.
Joe Carter. Yeah. So Joe Carter. Yeah. Sorry, guys. Like this is when you're talking about age, like that is like I remember Joe Carter, and I was a Joe Carter fan, but it's been so long since he played that I totally forgot his last name. Did he play for the Expos too? I feel like he did.
Well, let me
Expos and the Blue Jay, or was he a Blue Jay the whole time?
He never played for the Expos. Played 7 years with the Blue Jays, but never played for the Expos.
Okay. Where else was he after the Blue Jays? I just remember the Blue Jays.
Yeah, he was with the Cubs for a year, the Indians for 6, Padres for a year, Blue Jays for 7 seasons, and then his last year was split between the Orioles and the Giants. But we're getting completely sidetracked here.
Yeah, sorry. Sorry. Sorry, guys. I was totally digressed. Anyways, back to the Easter thing. C4 has like their big national tournament that they do every April. So it's kind of the Texoma big deal that they do every April. So obviously my son is playing in it in the 10U. So I'll be down there for that Easter weekend, but it's just a 1-day tournament. So it starts at like the butt crack of dawn at 8:00, but there is so much talent down there. Like you'll get to see all the DFW, obviously, because they're in Durant. So all the DFW teams will be there. The teams from Austin, Houston, they'll all come up. Teams from Louisiana, Arkansas, Oklahoma. And then you'll have some fly in from Florida and whatnot. So it's usually a pretty big deal. And I don't know. I'm excited for it, but at the same time, I'm like, oh gosh, just want to just stay home one weekend, man. One weekend. That's all I'm asking. Anyways, speaking of visits, speaking of people showing up, Oklahoma has been showing up and having a lot of visitors on campus, and a lot of time it's kind of stealthy when they show up. Like we just found out Jacoby Johnson was on campus on Monday. He was supposed to tell me it's Wednesday. He was there already. So Jacoby Johnson was there. What was it? Peyton Bowen last weekend by Job. Who else was there?
Bill Picchiotti was there.
Bill Picchiotti, Jamarian Fricklin, 2025 athlete from Muskogee. I mean, there's been a lot of visitors that have been arriving in Norman, at least coming in. Let me ask you, does this seem like there's more visitors now during this regime than there ever was during Riley during the springtime? Because we didn't hear a lot of visitors. Like it's almost like every day there's somebody on campus at Oklahoma now. That wasn't the case, I don't think, under Riley. They like, you came for the scrimmages on the weekend, or you came for this deal or this deal, but it was always a big event with them. Never really sprinkled in unofficial visits for just random tours. And if they did, and they obviously did, they didn't do it as much, I don't think. Am I reading that wrong? Am I misremembering all this stuff? I know it's only been but it just seems like the recruitment's like way different now.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because we all kind of figured, and we were told, right, that Oklahoma was going to kind of try to concentrate on specific weekends throughout the spring where they'd host a lot of visitors, and there would be very minimal visitors on the weekends that didn't fall on those dates that they were really concentrating on. And I feel like we haven't seen the diametric opposite, but it does seem like every week we're talking about at least a few visitors showing up to Oklahoma, Brandon. Obviously, March 5th and March 26th were the real heavy ones. this spring. January 29th was another real heavy one. The spring game is obviously going to be, they're going to host a ton of visitors that day as well. But man, I don't think we've gone a weekend where it's just been all quiet on the Western Front as far as visitors. There seem to have been some just about every single weekend, and then generally some throughout the week as well.
Yeah, it's been different. I think I know that, as you noted, that there's always that big weekend, the 5th, the 26th, the 23rd coming up, obviously June 2nd after that. But I mean, I don't know. It sounds like June 19th and maybe another weekend that could be of interest for, Oklahoma. And I don't know, is that even are visits even open then on the calendar? Like, I'm trying to remember all the calendar dates now.
Yeah,
I know.
rough.
It's hard to do, man. They change it up. Like, it used to be, we had a dead set. Like, every year was always the same. But now it's totally different for, obviously, I'm looking it up right now. Obviously, for football, COVID actually is what changed it all up. It kind of screwed everything, but
COVID screwed a lot of things.
Oh my gosh, horribly bad. I'm trying to find the recruiting dates here for June. Yeah, you most certainly can take visits then, interestingly enough. It is kind of the quiet period where they can take visits to your campus, but you can't go see them. Evaluation period starts on April the 15th and ends on April 30th. So, excuse me, no, it doesn't. It ends May 31st. Excuse me, I was way off there. May 31st. But I believe during the evaluation period, can't kids go visit the schools too at the same time? If I remember correctly on that.
Yes, I believe so.
They have to. Yeah. They can't, because camps. Duh. That was a
Yeah.
stupid question, Drumm. Yeah, camps, because the camps start in June. So, yeah, all this stuff is just, it's a different type of. The calendar's different, so I think that's probably why we view how things are going differently. You know what I mean? Like, just because it's laid out differently than it used to be. But yeah, obviously Phil Picciotti showed up. By Job was there. I talked to Picciotti. I talked to Job. Bowen was there. I talked to some people around there. As far as the visits, what was your total takeaway from this weekend? And how do you think things went for Oklahoma? Because there more than that just happened this weekend. Obviously, Peter Woods. Obviously, you've got Peyton Kirkland stuff too. So a lot actually happened this past weekend, Oklahoma on the recruiting trail.
Yeah, well, I took an L because I said Peyton Moen was going to flip. I predicted that Peyton Moen was going to flip. It didn't happen, but it does appear that there was a lot of positive momentum gathered in that direction. Obviously, Eli Bowen, the younger brother, got the OU offer.
Yeah.
It seems that from the conversations we've had that the OU staff was able to make a lot of headway just in terms of building that camaraderie and that rapport with all of the Bowens, not just Peyton and Eli, but the mom, Amy, as well. And so I do think I'd like to me, it's when, not if. I think Peyton Bowen's going to be a Sooner. I'm just curious to know, as is everyone, when does it happen? When does the flip come? Because to me, you don't visit OU this many times if that's where you don't want to be. And you got the Jackson Arnold factor thrown in there as well. Everything points to Peyton Bowen being a Sooner. Everything does. And so I will be surprised at this point if he doesn't flip. Now, as for the other guys that were on campus, obviously, I think the expectation is that Phil Picciotti is going to stay home at Penn State ultimately. The 24/7 Sports Crystal Ball favors the Nittany Lions right now, with predictions from Brian Doan and Sean Fitz, I believe, who both have a pretty good beat on his recruitment. Look, it says something that Oklahoma's been able to get Picciotti to Norman on his own dime 3 times. I mean, that's impressive in its own right, but getting a commitment from him is another matter entirely. And that's, it's one of those kids that I tend to think in my gut, he's going to elect to stay close to home. You saw Oklahoma make a new offer today at the linebacker position. That's Ronan Hannafin, 4-star, or I guess borderline 4-star. I don't know if he's a 4-star yet. He's just about in that territory, but Ronan Hannafin out of the state of Massachusetts, 6'3", 205 pounds. And that's maybe an indication that the Sooners are looking for a contingency plan if and when Picciotti decides in favor of Penn State, which, like I said, is kind of the consensus expectation. But not only that, but a reaction to Samaje Burrell's commitment to Texas. And, for those that were tracking Samaje Burrell's recruitment closely over the last couple months, he was all OU until he got to campus, and then he wasn't anymore. And ended up taking the visit to Texas and was committed within a matter of days. So that's another guy that's off the table for Oklahoma. Things right now are continuing to look up with Sammy Mussigo, and that's a guy that I expect is going to play linebacker at the next level. You have in Eric Mccarty, a guy that I think, and I think a lot of people think is more of a safety than a linebacker at the next level, but he's kind of like Mussigo in that he's just an athlete, man. It doesn't really matter where you put him at the end of the day. He's going to impact the football game. So I think Hannafin more fits the mold of that traditional in the box linebacker. And if Oklahoma can start to make a push in his recruitment, that'll be an interesting one to track. And I guess that brings us to By Job. And I mean, again, I'll defer to you on that one, Brandon, because By's your boy. So go ahead and dish on all things By Job.
Yeah, actually, I'm going to go see him on Wednesday this next week. He called me. I was supposed to go on Tuesday. He was sick, he said, didn't go to class. Funny thing is he calls me today like at 2:45, and he's like, "Where you at?" I said, "Dude, you didn't tell me you were coming back to school. I can't read your mind. Like, I need to know where you're going to be. I'll be there if you want me to be there." He's like, "Oh, my bad. I just assumed you were coming." I said, "No, you need to tell me where you're going to be, and I'll be there." So I was going to go on Monday, but I think I'm going to stay in Dallas and go hit up a few places. Mussigo is one of them. And then maybe go see, I don't know yet. I mean, I'll probably stop by Allen just to, touch base with Coach Morris and Umazulio. Umeozulu. I'm just going to say it like that just because it's easier for us to say that. He told us the way to say it, and I can't remember how it was.
Umazula, I think.
Umazula. I don't remember. Umeozula.
Amozula.
Amozula.
That's what it was.
Amozula. It's hard to say that. So, yeah, I'm going to go by and see him and maybe see a couple other guys that Oklahoma's offered in 2023, 24, and 25, and then head back up on Tuesday evening. And then Wednesday, I'm going to go down and see By Job, do a photo shoot with him, talk to him a little bit more. But as far as his recruitment goes, he's obviously going to Vanderbilt this weekend to start. Then he's going to hit up Alabama after Vanderbilt. The thing with him is he was at Oklahoma, obviously, on Friday. I don't want to say that Oklahoma fans don't need to expect By Job to eventually choose Oklahoma. The problem is that he sees Georgia and all these other programs as higher right now. Like, it's just, and when I say other programs like Alabama, like he sees Georgia and Alabama, like they're just different. Obviously, he's never been to Alabama, but he knows the notoriety of Alabama. He knows what they're capable of. He knows the mystique of Nick Saban. And this is coming from somebody that's only been around football for like a year and a half, almost 2 years. So for him to understand it at that, grassroots level, that means he is doing his homework. He's learning what's going on with these programs and what they're all about. He thinks that he can come in and compete and play at Oklahoma. That's fact. He knows that he's raw. He knows that no matter where he goes, he's going to need work. He's going to need to do a whole lot of different things. But winning, fitting in, and all that is priority number one with him. And the language barrier is right up there near the top. So Oklahoma's doing a lot of work there. They're doing everything they can to make this thing work in their favor. And I think at some level, there's some frustration on Oklahoma's part that, hey, this kid lives in Norman. Like, what in the hell is going on? Like, why is he not all about Oklahoma? Well, he's from Senegal originally, number one. Number two, yeah, his family that he's with, they want him at Oklahoma. They don't hide that fact. But what they do now is they've taken a step back and said, you know what? You need to go see some things. You need to go figure this thing out on your own. Probably the best thing the Bond family ever did outside of taking him in and raising him the last couple of years. And so I got to tell you, it's going to take work to get by Job. Like, it just is, because he is not the typical OK Preps kid that is just sold out. And I think, in talking to people about another player, similarly, Mccarty, and I know you've already touched on this before, Parker.
Yeah.
But there's things that are causing, with Micah, it's different. There's just.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's two completely different scenarios there. But
yeah, it's different. It's not. Bai just wants to understand things. That's more his problem. Like with Oklahoma, like he knows that he's got one of the great programs 5 minutes from where he lives. But for somebody that's from Senegal, seeing everything and kind of adjusting to cultures is what he's used to doing. So going to a new place isn't going to be the end all for him. It's not going to hurt him one way or the other. Now, again, I still think he ends up at Oklahoma at the end of the day, but he has to do this on his own. He has to figure out what's the best fit for him. So, and we'll see if those type of programs like a Georgia and an Alabama, instantly take him. Like, we don't know, because they're different in how they recruit, right? They just are. Like, we'll see. That's something that we have to talk to our Alabama people about. But as far as Micah Tees goes, I know I got off this tangent to Micah, and it's because they're similar in the fact that they're not guarantees. But I wanted to talk about it because it's freshly on my mind from the other day at Ed Memorial. Look, there is extenuating circumstances around him that are causing a lot of questions when it comes to Oklahoma. And until Oklahoma fights through those barriers, I don't know that. I don't even know. Like, what would you put the percentage on Micah Tees to Oklahoma at right now? 50?
I still think it's greater than 50% because I'll say 55 to 60, just because
not much more. Yeah.
No, not much more than 50. But at the end of the day, I really do feel like Micah Tees has enough influences around him, and he's got enough of an affinity for Oklahoma deep down that that's where he's gonna feel most comfortable, I think. And to me, that's why I still favor Oklahoma, even though it's become a lot less of a sure thing.
Yeah.
So
okay, I probably agree with you on that.
Yeah, the reason I would go higher than 50% is just because, who else right now would you favor over Oklahoma. There's nobody that really stands out. There's
Notre Dame
lots
is
of
close as it is,
considerations
yeah.
on the table. Notre Dame is there. Clemson will be there once they offer him, and once he visits, they will offer him. He likes Michigan. There's that bond with Brennan Marion, who's at Texas now. I mean, relationships will go far in all of this.
Mm-hmm.
So, man, it's hard to rule any of his top tier out, and they're probably anywhere from 6 to 10 schools right now that are certainly in the mix for Micah Tease. But end of the day, I don't think any of those schools individually has a better chance to land him than Oklahoma does.
Yeah. And then, on the Picchiotti thing, I talked to Picchiotti for quite a bit, and I think Oklahoma, like I do think Penn State leads, right? Like I think that's right now. I think that's where it's at. But much like Micah Tease with OU, Penn State's probably looking at this and going, damn, like that dude's going to visit Oklahoma again in the summer and then probably for another game. What is going on? Like what, how in the world do they keep getting that kid down there? Like, and he has this thing where he's always really admired Coach Venables. And you add the fact that he was really tight with Coach Odom before he left. Now Coach Roof and Coach Venables have come in and kind of, piggybacked on what Coach Odom and the previous staff did with Picchiotti. You don't want to say that. Yeah, I don't want to get OU fans' hopes up too much, but at the same time, you kind of look at it and go, there's a chance, and the chance keeps getting better and better and better. The longer OU has to build this relationship with Picchiotti and get him back down again, the better their chances. So this Champion Barbecue visit he has coming up is key. So we'll see where that goes. And then on obviously Peyton Bowen, look, I talked to somebody here in the last 24 hours that said, look, OU has a right to be confident, but at the same time, there's like this idea that he is just such a good kid. And he's a type of kid that when he tells you he's going to do something, he wants to please you. And he doesn't want to upset everybody. And that's just who he is as a person. And as a matter of fact, that is an amazing trait to have, by the way. And I can vouch for anybody that knows Peyton. He is that type of kid. Like he doesn't want to upset you. He wants to make sure that you're good to go. He'll walk up to you before he left Elite 11. He's like, are we good? Do you have everything you need? I got to go do my 7-on-7 stuff. Like that's the type of kid that he is. So when I'm told that, I can kind of see where that type of thinking comes from. But then you got to think about this. If you're Peyton Bowen's mother, okay, and Eli has a game on Friday night, and that thing ends at 11 o'clock, you finally get home, it's midnight. Peyton's game kicks off at 11 a.m. in South Bend. What are the odds you make that game?
Not high.
Not high.
And
So
if you do make it, you're probably not in a good mood.
So my point is that if you are Peyton Bowen, Eli Bowen, and their mom, who is definitely in charge of all this, and she's a great woman, by the way. I got to meet her, got to talk to her. Very nice lady. You talk about somebody that like Mama Bear that like is very protective of her kids. That's her to a T, and very proud of her kids as she should be. So, but I think that may play into this as we get further down the line, because that is going to get harder and harder and harder to adjust to. Like You can't just miraculously snap your fingers and go, oh, yeah, we can go Dallas to South Bend. There's maybe 2-3 flights there during the day. And I don't know. I haven't looked it up yet, but I would imagine that one of them probably is 8 a.m., 9 a.m., 10 a.m. in the morning. The other ones are probably in the evening or the afternoon. Like that would be, because every time I've gone somewhere that is of the smaller stature in airports, that's usually how it is. There's like 2 or 3 to these mega airports like Dallas and Minneapolis and stuff like that, and the rest of them are Chicago, and that's it. Like there's not a lot of flights going in and out of South Bend. Outside of that, you got to fly into Indianapolis or Chicago, and those are both an hour and a half to 2 hours away from South Bend. So even if you landed at 9 a.m. in Chicago, you still got to go get your car. You got to go beat the traffic in Chicago to get to South Bend. So that's not the easiest thing to do. No. So I'm interested to see how this plays out. So that is more or less why I am on your side on this. There are some that think that he'll stick with Notre Dame, and I'm leaning more towards your side, Parker, on this. The more I gather, because
yes.
I well, and
come to the dark side. I'm hoodie Kermit right now.
Well, it's not that I know that Notre Dame, because he's going on. Well, I will say this. The caveat I'll say is how much of the momentum that Oklahoma's built up and accrued over the last 3 visits gets completely sliced and smashed on the 23rd if he makes it up there for the spring game.
Yeah, that is a concern, undeniably so.
So we'll see. And then obviously Jacoby Johnson showed up. I'm interested to see your take. Like, when does this Jacoby Johnson stuff come to a head with the OU, do you think?
I've got no idea, Brandon, because it's been 2 years. It's been 2 years since Jacoby got the Oklahoma offer. And I feel like everybody's just been waiting. Everybody's kind of considered it a given from the get-go that OU is going to be the spot for Jacoby. And we're still here. We're still waiting. Yeah. And every time we put a timetable on it, every time we make a guess as to when it's going to happen, the can just seems to get kicked further and further down the road. So at this point, man, I really would expect he'll have it out of the way by the time his senior year starts. I'll say it gets done over the summer. If it gets done earlier than that, then that's a pleasant surprise. But yeah, I'd say over the summer.
Yeah, I think the Champion Barbecue is probably where it's at. What I do know is that when he was there on Monday, he said he got to break down the DBs with Coach Fly. So he thought that was pretty cool. He said his dad absolutely loved the intensity of the practice. So, and that was something that needed to be done. Like his dad hadn't been with him yet. Like it'd always been his mom that had gone on the visits with him and his brothers. His dad hadn't gone to OU yet. So I think that with this new staff, mind you, let me rephrase that. So I think that was a big deal, something kind of a check mark that needed to be checked off, and Oklahoma got that taken care of. So now where it goes from there, I think is up to Jacoby. I think Oklahoma feels really good about where they stand. I think if they can get Jacoby on board and get it done, I think momentum starts to ratchet up real quick then, because you've just landed one of the top 120 kids in the country again. So you've added on to a class that's already really good. Chances are the spring game is going to pop a couple more commits, I would guess. And then the Champion Barbecue is going to pop a couple. And then after that, you've got, certain other things going down the line that could work in Oklahoma's favor. So, we'll see. I still will pick Oklahoma. I know he wants to take a few visits here and there, but I'm not sure if those even take place, because I think he really just kind of wants to get this over with. Jacoby does not like the recruiting process at all. It's not who he is. He's just that quiet, just go get the job done. Look, the kid was supposed to tell me he was in Norman. He tells me on a Wednesday night, hey, by the way, I was in Norman on Monday, just randomly, by the way. So that's just who he is. Great kid, great family. That's just Jacoby. That's Jacoby right there to a T, by the way. This weekend, there's visits as well for Oklahoma. You want to talk about that, Parker? You want to kind of break all that down for everybody? Because I know Sammy Brown's coming in. I've talked to him. You've talked to him.
Yeah. So at least 2 confirmed visitors that I can think of offhand, and I'd have to double back and look at the lists. But Sammy Brown's coming, and just confirmed tonight that Dylan Edwards is going to be down as well. So he'll be at Oklahoma Friday. I'll see Dylan Edwards on Sunday at the Kansas City Under Armour camp. So going to get the chance to check in with him, see how that visit went. Several other OU targets going to be present at that camp in Kansas City as well. So we'll see what becomes of it. But there are people who are very divided on Dylan Edwards. If you go look at the OU Insider VIP board, there are some that think, my goodness, this kid can fly. He's a weapon. He's a dynamo. He's somebody that OU has to have. And then there are some that say, well, he's so small. What can he realistically bring to the offense besides speed? And as I touched on in our last podcast, I tend to agree more with the people in the former camp. I just think, you get to a certain level, and if you have elite speed, truly elite speed, which Dylan Edwards has, to a certain degree, that's all you need. And so I do think he can be a weapon for Oklahoma. I think he can provide a dimension to the OU offense that they really haven't had before, maybe ever. And so I'm excited to see if OU can continue to build momentum there. But this is a pivotal visit this weekend. This is going to be his first time back since he got the OU offer on his visit on January 29th. So we will see. But Sammy Brown, obviously, as the 5-star linebacker in the 2024 class, the consensus top linebacker in the country, he is without question the headliner. And I think we will find out a lot about Sammy Brown's feelings on OU based on this visit, because this is going to be his true first impression.
Yeah, I'll say this. Getting look, I think he's ranked the number 3 player in the initial, which is something we do need to talk about. The initial 2024 release of the top 247 came out today. He's 3 or 4 overall on that, right? 3 or 4 overall.
Number 6 overall in the 24/7.
He's huge. He's a 5-star, right? He's a 5-star. So yes. To get him there, and look, he's another player, much like Picchiotti, that has been very, very Venables centric as far as like the type of coach he wants to play for. Loves Coach Venables, talks about it openly. Like, look, he's from Georgia, so obviously Clemson being an hour and a half up the road, he's very indoctrinated in what Venables can do for a linebacker. And so Oklahoma has a chance here. Like, this isn't just a passing by visit at all. Even when you talk to people, I believe I talked to Rusty Manziel down there, and he kind of talked to me a little bit about Sammy Brown, a little bit, kind of the background. And I was like, is there a lot to it? He said, yeah, absolutely. Venables. Like, he loves Venables. And so I think it's going to be hard to pull him away from the Georgia Bulldogs, like anybody in the state of Georgia is going to be. They just won the national title. So there's a lot of pull there. It's hard to do for anybody in the state to get away from the Bulldogs, but he kind of seems to be the fit that Venables always ends up getting at linebacker. You know what I mean? Like, he gets that type of dude that sometimes is kind of more highly rated, and then he'll go and get, this guy that's got to be developed. So I'm not saying that Oklahoma fans need to be excited, need to think that, oh, it's another 2024 guy that they're going to be have the lead for it. No, I don't think that's the case at all here. But I do think that you can totally expect Sammy Brown to be back a couple of times in Norman if the visit goes well this weekend. And I think that is going to be the telltale. Like, is the visit going to go well? I know Oklahoma's also pushing for Tyler Turner, safety out of Texas, 3-star safety, former Baylor commit. Texas is pushing for him. I'll put you like this. I will not be shocked if Tyler Turner is back in Norman within the next 2 weeks. I'll leave it like that. And I may have a note coming on OU Insider about it.
So drop the crystal ball, Brandon.
Yeah, that's everybody's that's everybody's thing they want me to do. Let's talk about the we just brought up the 2024 class, and 247 we dropped our inaugural 2024 rankings, like literally everybody that's got their stars and all type of stuff today. Oklahoma is looking I mean the top 100 is kind of a who's who has been in Norman. And again, that is what I was talking about, Parker. Like, that is different.
Well, it's
tell me
it's
that's
wild.
not different.
It's wild to me, Brandon, because I was the one who wrote the story earlier, basically summarizing all of the players that Oklahoma's in on among the top 24/7. I was quite frankly astonished by how many times I wrote, he took an unofficial visit to Oklahoma in March. I swear I wrote those words like 20 times. But I mean, think of just looking over this list. How many guys is it true of? KJ Bolden didn't make it in March, but he'll be back. Sammy Brown coming this weekend. Jalen Mbakwe came in March. T.A. Cunningham. Yep. Zena Amozola. David Stone was here in March.
It's impossible to get that right, by the way.
Heaven Brown Schuler was there in March. So was Nigel Smith, DJ Lagway. Colin Simmons will be here in April. Zadavian Sims took a visit in March. So did Jaden Hardy, Stacey Gage. Jordan Seaton was on campus in March, as was Jordan Johnson Rubell wasn't, but he's been to Oklahoma enough, and he's got enough of a rapport that's a guy worth keeping an eye on.
Who's this?
Jordan Johnson Rubell.
No, he visited Oklahoma.
Did he? Oh, that's right. He did. March 26th. Yep. You're right. I don't know why I spaced on that. Mario Craver, he had to reschedule his visit, but he's going to take it. Williams Nwaneri, he was on campus. Caleb Beasley was as well. Tavion Henderson's going to get up there at some point. And of course, Eli Bowen was just on campus last weekend. So
did you talk about Colin Simmons?
Yes. Mentioned Colin Simmons. So, I mean, offhand, you're into the teens there among players in the 2024 top 247 that were on unofficial visits with Oklahoma in March.
Dude, I'm telling you, like, it's utterly insane what Oklahoma's done. I honestly can't get over it. Just the difference in talent, the difference in the depth of the talent that Oklahoma's in on in the 2024 class. And I keep using the word different, and I want to say it's different in such a good way that, OU fans should be very happy with what's going on the recruiting trail. I think the expectation needs to be kind of slowed down in some cases for what should be expected, year one, year two. I think everybody needs to be kind of in I think every Oklahoma fan needs to be in a wait and see attitude when it comes to recruiting. Would you agree with that? Like, they don't need to go, oh, well, they need to have, a top 8 class here because that's what they started out with, or they need to do that. Now, Oklahoma doesn't want to rely on the transfer portal the way they had to in year one or during Venable's first recruiting class in 2022. They don't want to do that. They want to go majority high school, then get 4 or 5 transfers. just to kind of fill in and bring starters here and experience there type of deal. Maybe a game changer here or there. That's it. That's how they want to attack this. They want it to be a developmental program to where they can rely on 3 and 4-year guy and have as much retention as possible throughout those 3 or 4 years as they possibly can. I mean, they don't want to overstack a position to where next thing you know, in year 2, there's 5 of them transferring out. Then, it's that old wives' tale of, a bird in the hand is.
Yes, a bird in the hand is worth 2 in the bush.
Yeah. So, I mean, like, that's kind of where how they're attacking the recruiting. So I think Oklahoma's going to end up with a great 23 class and a fantastic 24 class, but I think you need to take a wait and see attitude anyways. The names that you mentioned, who is going to be the first to crack? Not named David Stone. I'm taking the easy one off.
In 2024, you're talking about.
Correct, in 2024. Just if you were to guess.
Quite honestly, I think it's going to be the quarterback. Now, the question becomes, is that DJ Lagway or is that Michael Hawkins? And I think those two are kind of, I think both you and I would agree, Brandon, those two are kind of at the top of the list right now. And sure, there was some buzz that Dylan Raiola might be visiting campus a couple of weeks ago, and he's the number 1 player, regardless of position, in the 24/7 sports rankings, but just not really getting the sense right now that OU is going to have much of a leg to stand on in that race, not unless there is a pretty seismic shift. And then, Mabry Matayer's there, sure, but I think the higher ceiling guys and the guys that probably fit Jeff Lebby's system a little better are Lagway and Hawkins. And Lagway comes in at, I believe, number 46 overall, if I remember correctly. Yes, number 46 in the inaugural top 24/7. And Michael Hawkins is at number 141. So both those guys are elite tier quarterbacks in this class. And both of them are probably going to be top 10 at the position when all is said and done. Both of those guys are also there's not a whole lot of guesswork to be done. Oklahoma becomes the immediate front runner for either of those guys if and when they offer. And so I feel like we're starting to get to the point where OU is going to start to pursue one of those guys seriously. And if and when they do, man, I think they'll push to get their quarterback committed early, which is the natural thing to do, right? And I imagine both of those guys are going to be pretty eager to jump on with Oklahoma as long as they feel comfortable with the fit there and with the relationships.
Yeah, I want to agree with you on that. Something tells me that if Oklahoma goes after maybe a Davian Sims type, or really presses hard, which they already are, but if they pressed even harder for Nigel Smith, I kind of think those two would be kind of, maybe the ones that crack. I think the obvious answer is Dax Collins if he gets the offer during camp.
Sure.
I think that's the obvious answer. Or David Stone, but we took David Stone off the board. But I'm going to go with Nigel Smith, somebody that keeps showing up to Norman, is one of the better players in 2024. What is he ranked? 42 overall or something like that?
41,
trying to think here.
42? Yeah, 42.
Something like I can't remember. 42 overall. I like Oklahoma's chances there. I know you know him really well.
Yeah, I like Oklahoma's chances there too. And believe me, it's a good sign that he's going to be back for the spring game. And it's an even better sign that he scheduled that spring game visit almost immediately upon taking his first unofficial with OU. Now, the hesitation I have is that Texas A&M is involved too. And these days,
but
Brandon, anytime Texas A&M is involved for a defensive lineman, you got to take him seriously as a contender.
okay,
You have to.
yes, I agree with that. But in this case, if you're Nigel Smith and his family, you live in Melissa, Texas. It's literally 15, 20 minutes from the Oklahoma border.
Very close, yes.
Right? Do you drive 4 hours south every Saturday, or how about 2? Cut your days in half.
I mean,
travel time in half.
No, listen. I'm with you. Oh, I just disappeared. I'm with you, but to be fair, we were kind of saying the same thing about David Hicks.
You know what? I talked to people about David Hicks today, and there's still a lot of strong buzz for Oklahoma there. A lot of strong buzz for Oklahoma. I was shocked. They said, I quote, here's what I said. It wasn't going to make a difference. Like, nothing changed from what I was told. His family was still back there. The only people that were in Dallas was him and his dad. So nothing changed for him as far as the family aspect goes. His mom and the rest of his family were still going to have to travel 6 hours to Norman if they were going to do it, if he was going to pick Oklahoma. Like, nothing changed for him. And that's where the people I talked to, they were like, look, everybody kind of already is instantly wrote it off, and they're A&M. And the person said, we may end up at A&M. But to sit there and say Norman in Oklahoma they don't have a chance with Coach Bates and that relationship, I said people are thinking this totally wrong, because his family was already back in Katy. They were split up. Like, this was never a... and this person may not know what they're talking about, but I kind of feel they do. But it's, like, I don't know. That was just kind of the vibe I got. Like, I'm not picking Oklahoma. I want everybody to.
Yeah, well, it's just...
I've always said A&M is a leader, but I don't think this is like ruining OU's chances. It's not the nail in the coffin at all. As a matter of fact, I wouldn't be shocked to see him back in Norman within the next few weeks.
Now here's the question. How many visits does he take to A&M over the next 8 months?
Katy is not that easy to get to College Station. I think that's something people need to remember. Was it like 2 hours away?
Still. It's 2
He was 2 hours from Norman. He didn't even do that, dude. He still has football, track, all that type of stuff. So that's my point. Like,
no, yeah. I'm with you. It's just it's A&M we're talking about. That's it.
I know everybody wants to
days.
Yeah, no, and I get it. And I've said A&M is probably the leader at this point, but at some juncture, they're going to end up losing a head-to-head battle. I mean, hell, they already did with Gabriel Brownlow Jr. They aren't. If the coaching change doesn't happen, GBD's in Norman right now and not in College Station. Like, it's happened. They've already lost the head-to-head there. That was pure luck. Now, A&M has gotten lucky. Things have just kind of fallen in their lap. But at what point does that stop and the momentum switch to go someplace else? Like, say they go 7-5 this year, which is a possibility, or 8-4.
Okay.
And Oklahoma goes 11-1.
Tracking.
Do they still have that strong of momentum? Because at what point do you look as a kid and as a family, do you go, you know what? NIL money, and I'm not saying, I'm just throwing this out there because that's what everybody else is saying. It's all the NIL money. It's all the NIL. I'm not saying that's what A&M's doing. I don't want to say that I'm pointing fingers here. But at what point do you go, okay, the NIL money is great, but in Norman, they're producing NFL guys. Tuscaloosa, they're producing NFL guys. That's going to be more long-lasting potentially than the 2 or 3 years that you have here in college, and probably a greater, it's obviously going to be a greater amount of money as well. And if you go to a school like Norman or Tuscaloosa or someplace like that, and you're beloved there, you're going to make money the rest of your life because that's what everybody does. You're in a state of like Oklahoma where it's not like Texas where there's 20 other schools, right? If you go to OU and you become a star, you make money in that state the rest of your life. Adrian Peterson, Jason White, Jack Mildren for years, Dusty Dvorak. I mean, the list goes on. Teddy Lehman, Gabe Eichert. Like, we're going on and on of guys that have starred at Oklahoma and come back and made a killing, right? Just because they were stars at OU. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I'm with you.
But it has to happen first. I think, obviously, that crack in that ice has got to become a bigger crack, and somebody's got to fall through before A&M loses. I get it. But maybe Hicks is that first one. You never know. I still think he ends up at A&M, but I'm just saying you never know. It is not a done deal. Are you tracking where I'm going here with this?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, let's talk a little bit of spring ball here. They've had some pretty intense team sessions. And there's been standouts and there's been ups and downs. Like, it's not all, roses and
No, it is
Norman.
not.
Like, people, no. I mean, yes, there has been some really good performances on the defensive side and the offensive side of the ball, but there's been some really big issues too. Folks, they're picking up a whole new scheme, new verbiage, new way of doing everything. There was always going to be ups and downs, roller coaster. Parker, talk about what you've heard, and then I'll go after you.
Yeah, I mean, it's look to various degrees and in various verbiage. I've heard the first couple scrimmages described as messy, and the reality is everybody's operating on a learning curve right now, because you take a very fundamentally simple defense like Alex Grinch's and you sear it into these guys' heads, and then you ask them to pick up Brent Venables' playbook, which is without much argument the most intricate defensive playbook at the collegiate level in America. Yeah, there are going to be some growing pains. And I think that's why spring practice is going to be really good for Oklahoma. And we're going to really be able to get a sense of, we're going to be able to watch the wheat separate from the chaff to a certain extent. We're going to figure out which guys.
Talk about a hell of an analogy.
Oh, but no, we're going to find out which guys are not only the most physically talented, but we're going to find out which ones are coachable and which ones adapt and adjust effectively. And those are going to be the guys that stand out. Now, as far as the offense is concerned, look, same deal. It's different. It's different. It's not as different from a Lincoln Riley offense to a Jeff Lebby offense as it is from a Alex Grinch defense to a Brent Venables defense, but it's different. And it's a bonus and it's a plus that you've got a guy in Dylan Gabriel at the helm that knows Lebby and knows the system, but there are still guys that are coming in, not necessarily from this offense last year, but you have guys that are coming in from a high school background where their offenses were very, very simplified, and they're coming in as early enrollees, true freshmen. And then you have guys coming in via the transfer portal. Everybody's trying to kind of pick this up on the fly, and it's going to be a process. It's not going to be the type of thing where you're hearing glowing reports about how ridiculously good everybody looks in these practice sessions, these scrimmages over the next few weeks. There will be standouts. There have been standouts, and there will continue to be standouts. There will be positive things said about the team as a whole and about individuals in particular. But I don't think you're going to hear anybody utter the words, yeah, this looks like a championship team over the next couple of weeks, because the harsh reality is that no team, when faced with the challenges that Oklahoma faces right now and will continue to face throughout the spring and summer and fall camp, is going to look like a championship team in April. They may look like a championship team by October or November, but in April, when you're having to overhaul all of your systems and build new relationships and build trust and build rapport, like I said, there are going to be growing pains, and there have been for this program, and there will continue to be. Now, with that said, there are some guys that are really, really standing out, and a guy whose name I'm going to continue to mention, because my goodness, every single day, I just hear one more little nugget about how good he's been and how impressive. Javonte freaking Barnes, man. Like, oh, that dude's going to be a player, and he'll be a player very soon for Oklahoma. Also really impressed with what I'm hearing about Towie Walker. I did not expect that I would hear such unanimously positive things about a walk-on running back, but here we are. And everybody has great things to say about Towie Walker. And there are some that believe he might actually get a few carries this year, which is, I mean, wild to think, considering he's not much more than 5'8", and he's stocky. He's compact. He's like if you hit Ramondre Stevenson on the head with a pile driver a couple of times. And that's obviously not an apples to apples comparison, because Ramondre was one of a kind. But really interested to see whether the hype for Towie Walker is legit. We're going to find out on April 23rd, I think. But beyond that, man, Jalil Farouk has impressed a lot of people, opened a lot of eyes, turned a lot of heads. Brandon, neither you nor I are all that surprised to hear outstanding reviews of Ethan Downs' play. Billy Bowman, I've heard good things about him as he makes the adjustment to the safety position. And man, I don't think we had the chance to mention it on last week's podcast because it hadn't happened yet, but Justin Harrington's back with the team, and he looked good in the practice session that we got to see on Friday. Not only that, but I've heard good things about him, not just what I've seen with my own two eyes, but secondary reports from people who know that situation and know the program a lot better than I do have said the exact same thing about Justin Harrington, is that this isn't a dude that looks like he just took 6 months off of football. This looks like a dude that is motivated to come back and try and compete for playing time for the Sooners in 2022.
Yeah, no, look, well, I guess I'll start with the Harrington thing, because you and I were talking about it off air. I talked to somebody today and said, look, he's been working at the nickel position quite a bit. He's, trying to get back in there. And the person kind of gave the analogy that said, look, sometimes, in particularly his situation, and I think almost everybody's situation in life, you kind of got to fall before you find yourself. And they think maybe that's happened here, because there's a lot of talent. There's a lot to work with: his size, his speed, his athleticism, his ability. If they said if he can pick up the mental aspect of it at the nickel position, he might just be a breakthrough guy for them this year. But you don't want to get the cart before the horses or anything like that. It's just he's very, very athletic, and this staff and everybody around is noticing him. I mean, he's not hard to, or he is hard to miss, actually. He's a big guy. He's big, he's fast, he's athletic. And every time he makes a play, everybody kind of turns, they sit and looks like, okay, maybe things are starting to click with this kid. The attitude's different. It's just, things are different with him, I was told. And so that's a big start for him, being that he was out for a significant portion and had to work his way back into trust just with Venables alone. Add in another Walker that I think is kind of has a chance to be a star at OU. That's Kanai Walker, cornerback at OU. I mean, transfer from Louisville. There are a lot of high hopes there from a frame standpoint, from an athleticism, from a speed standpoint. He has everything that you want, all the intangibles that you want. Now, if he can pick up the defense, if he can play with the tenacity that they hope he can, and be kind of that other guy outside of DJ Graham and Woody Washington, they feel like they're moving in the right direction in the secondary. But they said that there is the people I've talked to said that there's a long time before they're going to feel comfortable with it. I mean, it's going to be a lot of work. I mean, with their 8-9 practices in on the spring. So they've got time to continue to build up to that heading into the fall and summer camps. So, but that's what they're doing. They're hoping that all this is momentum leading in, and then they'll go from there. They'll work. They'll get those, 8 hours in with every week that they can during the summer and continue to build on the knowledge that these players have done throughout the spring so far. So there are players that have their ups and downs right now. And we could sit here and talk about this players, may not be picking it up as fast. And this guy is picking it up as fast and all that. But you just hate labeling it because you never know. The negative part about it you hate is what I'm trying to say, because you never know. Turn around a month from now and the person that was standing out in April, it could be flipped. And that's just the way it works when you're learning a new system and you're going through a change in regime. That's just how it happens. Some people start off fast and then fall off. Some people start off slow and become All-Americans down the line. That's how this whole coaching, development type thing works. Not everybody's going to come in and be a star. That's facts. I mean, I've heard great things about Jaden Gibson. I've heard he's been just a dude out there. He's hard to cover because he's so damn tall.
He is really tall.
I mean, that's facts. I mean, like
he looks even taller than 6'5". He really does.
He does. Like, Parker, you and I are not short guys.
No,
we
not.
Look like midget, and we look like midgets next to him.
Like,
so I was just
like in cleats and a helmet, he looks 6'7", 6'8". I know he's not. I know he's not.
Jeffrey Mead
is
who he reminds me of. Jeffrey Mead. He reminds me of Jeffrey Mead. Jeffrey Mead always looked like he was like 7'2" out there in the uniform. Just so tall. But he's thicker than Jeffrey Mead. Jeffrey Mead was just such a toothpick. If he would have ever put on muscle, he would have been really good.
Well, let's hope Jaden Gibson can do the same, because he's not quite. Yeah, he's not. He doesn't fall into the toothpick category, but he's definitely got some bulking up to do.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. He's got a frame you can add. Look, I'll tell you this. Talked to a source, said, look, secondary is going to have its bumps. And they added this. They said, if you look at it, man, outside of Justin Broyles, everybody's basically a sophomore or younger. And I kind of was like in my head trying to do all the calculations, like, is that right? Is that right? And I get on Parker before we start. I was telling him about it, and he's like, dude, that is right. So it's like hard to like wrap your head around how young they are in the secondary. Don't get it twisted. They're talented. They're so talented, but the experience is so lacking there. And I think that's where, and in particular, the safety position, and that's what we're talking about, the safety, not the corners. Obviously, corners have guys that are higher than sophomores, but at the safety position, it's just, and I'll tell you this. I'll tell another thing I was told. To a man, and this person was just so complimentary of this player. if half the players out there had Justin Broyles' heart, want to, and knowledge, they said that these dudes would all be All-Americans. They said Justin Broyles is the hardest working, smartest, always in the right spot type player that he's seen. Like,
which is exactly why
he always plays.
Like, unpopular as it may be, I think he's going to play a lot for Oklahoma this fall. I do. And no, he's not as physically gifted as some of the guys that he's going to be competing with. But guess what? I feel like I've said it on every single podcast we've done. In Brent Venables' defense, knowing your role and being able to execute it is worth far more than just being a freak athlete.
Yes. Oh my God. But even without that, you and I have fought this battle for a year now. Last year, I want people to think about this. Last year, DTY. Outside of DTY and obviously, but the other player everybody hates, I'm going to say it, Pat Fields. Outside of those two, who played better at safety? Nobody. Justin Broyles.
Yeah. You can make a case.
He made plays.
You can make a case that while Delarian Turner-Yell was on the shelf, Broyles alongside Key Lawrence were the two most valuable cogs in the Oklahoma secondary.
Thank you so much. How much, if they don't have Justin Broyles back there to be a backup and to come in and fill in for DTY, how bad do you think that would have been for Oklahoma in the secondary last year?
Yeah, it could have gotten ugly.
And people forget that. They want to look at that 2019 Peach Bowl playoff performance that he got burnt by two of the best wide receivers in the NFL.
I want that game to be shelved and forgotten because there is no shame in anyone getting burnt that night. Because it did not matter who Oklahoma rolled out in the secondary. It did not matter. It was not going to matter whether they were at full strength or not. Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson and Thaddeus Moss, those guys were going to have their way with the Oklahoma secondary that night. It was already written.
Yeah. I mean, that was outside of the 2018 and 2017 Oklahoma offenses. There is not a greater offense that I've seen live and in person than that 2019 LSU squad.
Oh, that's it for me. That's it for me. Like it's even better than OU's offense in 2017 and 20.
Well, those are the three. Those are the three that I've seen that are just like on a whole other level. Period.
I mean, when that LSU offense was clicking, it was actually unstoppable.
Yeah.
Like it did not matter how good your defense was. You could not stop them.
How many
points did they drop on Alabama? 51?
Yeah. They dropped 45 on Clemson, the number one defense in the country. It may have been more than that, actually. I can't remember. 45,
no, it was
45. Something like that.
Yeah, 45.
Okay. Well, okay. But go and look at 2017, 2018, and then 2019 LSU, or 2017, 2018 Oklahoma, and then 2019 LSU. Go look at the NFL guys that are on that. They have the most ridiculous. Those are the three most ridiculous lineups I've ever seen in my life. As far think about it. Go look at it it doesn't matter from the linemen to the receivers to the tight ends to the running backs. NFL. They're all in the NFL.
You had Thaddeus Moss and Terrace Marshall doing damage, but on primarily you got toasted that night by a guy that was a top 5 NFL quarterback last year and two guys that were top 5 NFL wide receivers last year. Again,
that's what I was saying.
No shame.
No. Why do people want to harp on that and still hold that in their head? They're like, oh, that's why I don't like Joseph Burrow. Get over it. The guy is given everything he's had for the program.
Yeah.
And you talk about somebody that defended the program whenever Muleshoe left. That's your dude. That guy has stood up and been kind of the catalyst for a lot of things for Oklahoma. He may be the most significant player to get kind of quietly. I'm telling you, one of the most significant players in OU history, as far as what he's done in the locker room.
Well,
and the morale part
this,
of it.
And consider this. Players who came to a school like Oklahoma with expectations on their shoulders, like Justin Broyles, and who saw the field as little as he did and as infrequently as he did over their first 4 years on campus, 90% of guys in that situation would have hit the transfer.
Yeah.
The vast majority of guys in his situation would have looked for any opportunity elsewhere. He was virtually in the exact same position as Robert Barnes. Robert Barnes hit the portal and nobody faulted him for it. It was just like, well, he's never going to crack it here. He's got to go.
And Barnes is a legacy.
Yeah, he's got to go find his way somewhere else. And I'll be honest, I thought for a long time, I think a lot of people figured for a long time, man, it's just a matter of when Justin Broyles hits the transfer portal, because it's just never going to happen for him at Oklahoma. And for it to start happening for him, I don't know that it's completely happened yet, but to see it start happening for him in year 5 at Oklahoma, I thought that was really cool. And I just remember how thrilled he looked coming into that interview room after he finally got his first career interception. I think it was against Texas Tech, if I recall correctly.
Yep. Correct.
And I asked him if he, if after 5 years of playing ball at Oklahoma and still waiting for that first pick, I asked him if he ever wondered whether it was ever going to come or whether it was just going to be a pipe dream and constantly elusive. He said, no, man, I just, this is what I committed to. And I just had to stick with the plan. And I did. I never had a doubt that I was going to break through at some point. And he did. I think he'll have a big role for the Sooners in 2022. Does he start every single game? Okay, sure. Maybe not. But he'll play a decent amount for this program. And his leadership will be crucial.
We agree. And like I was saying, when I say significant as far as the player in OU history, I'm not talking about on the field. I'm talking about, because somebody's going to go, oh my God, he said blah, blah, blah. I'm not talking about, wow, I totally lost my light here. That's not good. Oh, well.
You're good. We can see your face.
Yeah, it's just not as clean. But
and people listening on Spotify they can't see your face anyway. For those that can, they can still see it. Okay, Brandon, you want to get to the conversation that we aren't having, but probably should start having?
What is that one? You're gonna have to you have to clue me in on this.
Okay. Let me ask you this. And if you don't immediately know, that's fine, because it's kind of an obscure detail. What was the common denominator in the years 2004, 2009, and 2014 for Oklahoma? Did I stump you?
Okay. The common denominator between 2004, 2009, and 2014?
Yes. So 2004, they went to the national championship that year. Obviously, they lost to USC. 2009, they played in the Sun Bowl against Stanford, because that was year 1 of the Landry Jones experiment. 2014 was
just close
to the end of the Josh Heupel era. But no, the common denominator, and what I was angling for there, is that in all 3 of those seasons, the Sooners had a lot of trouble in the kicking game. They struggled. They tried several different guys in each of those years. Ultimately, Garrett Hartley emerged as the guy in 2004. Jimmy Stevens figured it out down the stretch in 2009 after Tress Way was atrocious in the brief stint as a place kicker that he got. And then in 2014, most everyone remembers Michael Honeycutt's meltdown against Kansas State that kind of epitomized the ups and downs of that season for him.
He went from money cut to ugh.
Yes. Now, I have my concerns about kicker and about the kicking game for the Sooners in 2022 because they don't have a scholarship guy right now with Gabe Burkich out the window. The two players on the roster that are going to be in competition for place kicking duties are Zack Schmidt and Gavin Marshall, who's a true freshman walk-on. You also have Josh Plaster, who's a kicker / punter, can kind of do a little bit of both. But in terms of pure place kickers, it is Zack Schmidt and it is Gavin Marshall. Now, from what I have been told regarding the Sooners' early practice sessions thus far this spring, that is a position at which there's going to probably be a bit of a drop off because neither of those guys.
He went from like an all-time guy.
Yes. Neither of those guys are nearly as good or as consistent as Gabe Burkich. Now, are you going to get a weekly flaming disaster like you did at Nebraska in 2009 when Tressway shanked 3 field goals horribly? No, I'm not saying that. What I am saying is, when Gabe Burkich trotted out on the field and he had to have a kick, you figured it was going in. You could put good money on it going in. He only really ever had one memorable miss, and it was in the third overtime of that Texas game in 2020. Ultimately, Drake Stoops redeemed Burkich with that touchdown reception in the fourth overtime, and all was not lost. But Burkich had some ups and downs, right? He was not perfect. He was perfect his first year in 2019, literally made all 69 kicks he attempted that year between field goals and extra points. But he had his moments in 2020 and 2021 where he was less consistent. Most of his misses came from long range, though. I think that in itself, though, goes to show you how comfortable the former head coach was in rolling out Burkich and having him kick it from 50 plus. Between Zack Schmidt and Gavin Marshall, you have to give the edge to Zack Schmidt just because he's been with the program for 3 years at this point. I don't know that there's going to be as much of an adjustment to the speed and the tempo of the kicking game in college versus high school as much as there's going to be for Gavin Marshall, who is transitioning right now from the high school speed to the collegiate speed. And when you're dealing with something that is as choreographed and quite simply as fast as place kicking, you really have to have kind of an innate sense of how everything flows in tempo. And so the Sooners have a 6th-year senior coming back handling the long snaps, and Casey Kelleher. I'm told the plan is for Michael Turk to serve as the holder. But who's going to be kicking the football? Is it Zack Schmidt or is it Gavin Marshall? I'd say probably
I'll bet
Zack
on Marshall.
Schmidt, but
really?
Here's the caveat I was going to add. It wouldn't shock me if Gavin Marshall is kicking by the end of the season. Because if you recall, in 2004, it was Trey DiCarlo's job until it wasn't. And Bob Stoops got so pissed with Trey DiCarlo that he pulled Garrett Hartley's red shirt and told him to go kick. And he did.
And Trey DiCarlo was really good up to that point, too.
Yeah.
That's the
I
weird part
wonder
about
if
it.
you see a similar dynamic play out in 2022, because this is essentially verbatim what I was told from a source close to the program. It feels like it did in 2019 when Callum Sutherland didn't really win the job, but more so didn't lose it throughout camp. And Sutherland kicked for the first 4 games, as you recall, that season, then was dismissed from the team for an off-field issue. Gabe Burkich was kind of forced into action and seized the bull by the horns as much so as any OU special teamer ever has, which was fantastic to see from a young guy that a lot of people were uncertain about at the time. But I think that is one position that I'm identifying right now as a potential area of concern for Oklahoma in 2022. I think if you're talking about the players that are on the field on a regular basis, offense, defense, the secondary is probably that group that we're the most apprehensive about at the moment. But man, that kicker position, you'd hope that doesn't come back to bite Oklahoma at some point in 2022, and that doesn't become a lingering issue that there's no apparent answer to.
Yeah, I always thought, when you watch Gavin Marshall kick and what little film we can get of him out there kicking, he's got a boot for legs. So I mean,
he spent his junior year at IMG.
Yeah, so I mean, he knows the big time atmosphere and everything that entails. So I don't know. I never really thought Schmidt would be the guy. I really instantly thought, okay, well, Gavin Marshall's going to be it. They're going to go and they're going to try to have that 4-year guy take over and be the dude. So that's an interesting topic. That's something we probably need to dive into and kind of watch closely and then kind of reconvene on, because, I mean, do we really know who's going to do what at this point? I will say this. It does seem that Gavin Marshall and Michael Turk are like two peas in a pod. They're always around each other, no matter what video you're in. Video Michael Turk puts up on his little YouTube stuff that he does at Hang Time, that Gavin Marshall's not just a bit piece in it. He's a major player in those videos. So I'm gonna lean on that right now, because I haven't really asked anybody who's doing what, kicking and all this stuff. Because in my head, I'm thinking they have the best punter in college football, so you don't have to worry about that.
Yeah, well,
but
no, I mean, here's what's happening right now. You got Casey Kelleher handling the snaps,
pretty good,
completely understandable. He's one of the best in the nation. Could have a future in the NFL after his career at Oklahoma is finished. Josh Plaster is holding right now as Michael Turk recovers from a broken hand that I didn't realize he was playing with throughout the 2021 season. But he underwent surgery in the off season. So he got that cleaned up. He's got the little, it's not really a cast, but one of those Velcro pseudo casts that he wears on his hand until he's completely recovered. And then he's going to take over holder duty. And man, like, I'll say this, if you're going to Vegas and you're putting money on one true freshman to start opening day for the Sooners, if you can find odds on Gavin Marshall, that might not be the worst bet.
No joke, right? I mean, I honestly think he probably will. I don't know. I don't know why I think that. Like, I don't have any insight or anything like that, because the fact that we're even talking kickers in April baffles me to begin with, because and I get it's a good topic, honestly. Like, it's great. I'm glad you brought it up, but it's not something and again, it goes to the fact that for the longest time, whether it was punter or kicker, for the last 5, 6, 7 years, Oklahoma's kind of had one of the better players at that position in college football. So I've never really thought about it from that instance, because you go from Austin Seibert to Michael Turk to, Gabe Burkich. I mean,
special teams. Well, in terms of the kicking game, it was a legit concern for a month in 2019, but outside of that, it hasn't been an issue since 2014. No. And that right there tells why I haven't thought about it. And it's a great topic. Again, I just think that Marshall he was one of the top kickers in the country too, coming out of high school, like legit was like 1 or 2 in the country. I mean, he kicked at IMG, which tells you all you need to know.
Yeah.
Kicker spots at IMG are few and far between.
Correct. So, I mean, there you go. So
they ain't like IMG's roster in 12 kickers.
No, absolutely. And I've seen the other kickers they have in their roster this year, and they're legit, dude. So, I think Gavin Marshall's going to end up being there. You got Schmidt as the guy to start the season. I'll go Gavin Marshall.
I'm going with I'm going with the same approach that I took. Well, okay, no, I don't want to make that comparison at all. I'll stray away from it. Here's what I say. I'm going to say that Schmidt starts the year as your starting kicker. Gavin Marshall ends the year as the one handling place kicker duty.
Okay, well, that too, that very well could be what happened, but that's something we're going to talk about, come August.
Yeah,
that's going to be
it's not like
topic.
It's not like we're going to be sitting here every week talking about kickers and punters, but I think it is an important conversation to have once during the spring, and then certainly to revisit as fall camp breaks and as we start to get a semblance of an idea of who's going to be atop the depth chart at each of these positions, because special teams matters. I'm going to keep saying it, and it's never going to be any less true. Special teams matters. And you don't got any look any further than Baylor last year and Oklahoma State last year for examples of that.
Yep, absolutely. Well, look, I think that's a good place for us to stop this podcast, kind of wind it down. Obviously, throughout the next few weeks, though, when we do our podcast, when we do our YouTube lives, a lot of NFL drafts is going to be talked about. A lot of spring game. Yeah, I mean, it's all coming up. We're going to say the spring games coming up. The list is getting better and better right now for Oklahoma. I'll go ahead and tell you what few players we have confirmed at this juncture. 5-star defensive lineman Derek LeBlanc's coming back again for another 4-day trip. Miami, Florida are teams to watch with him.
That dude gets his money's worth when he comes to Oklahoma.
Yes, he does. But I'm telling you right now, it's never a short trip. That's for sure. And I'm like, hey, I say this every time. I'm going to do it again. Ricardo, what's going on, man? He's always listening, always tells us. He's watching us, one of the two. He's always on here. So that's Derek LeBlanc's dad. So I always give him a shout out because he always tells me to. So his good friend and workout partner, training partner, Peyton Kirkland, is coming with him, 4-star offensive lineman out of Dr. Phillips High School in Orlando. They're bringing, I want to say, Bjorn Jorgensen, the 2025 quarterback from Dr. Phillips is coming with him. And I want to say the other player is going to be, he's got two more. Amari Major, 2025 running back, and Jamez Hamilton, 2023 defensive back, is coming with him. They're all from Dr. Phillips High School, all players that could be Oklahoma's targets when it's all said and done. Josh Bates, Oklahoma offensive line commits coming as well for the spring game. Caden Green, 4-star offensive lineman in the 2023 class, is coming for, I think, his 6th visit to Oklahoma.
Visit number 6
since October. Yep. Jaquazi Petaway, 2023 wide receiver out of the Houston areas, coming, and Georgia defensive tackle, 2024 defensive tackle, and OU offer Tyler Morris coming as well. He's an interesting guy. Not very many people talk about him. He has an OU offer. Coach Bates threw it out. Coach Bates is recruiting him quite hard. So we'll see about that. He told me he was coming a long time ago, by the way. So there's that. And I know there's more. And we're going to add to that list as we go. I've heard some buzz of Anthony Hill. I've heard some buzz of, David Hicks. So we'll have all that stuff ironed out as we go, but that's kind of where the list is right now for the spring game early on, 2 weeks out. Definitely going to get bigger, definitely going to get better as we get. I expect Jacoby Johnson probably be there. I expect By Job will probably be there. I expect, more or less, I would guess Micah Tease might end up there. There's going to be some Oklahoma Dax Collins. A lot of Oklahoma talent will be around for that as well, and Texas talent. So we'll talk about that as we get going on here in the next few weeks and go from there. But that's going to do it for this OU Insider Under the Visor Sooners podcast. If you're not signed up for OU Insider, be sure to try right now. $75 get you 1 year, get you all the access that you want of OU Insider, all of 247 Sports, and you get Paramount Plus with it. That is huge. You sign up with your same account that you sign up with OU Insider, go up in the settings box, all that type of stuff. You can get Paramount Plus with your OU Insider access as long as you pay the $75. If you get that 50% off and all that, they don't allow it till you're with us for a year. But that is how it is right now. Right now, $75 gets you 1 year plus Paramount Plus. So that's like $218 worth of value. It's a great deal, to be honest with you. Or you can try us for $1 for the first month, $9.95 afterwards. You don't get quite that type of access. You're definitely not going to get Paramount Plus and all that type of stuff. But you can try us for 1 month, see how it goes, get the spring game, get all the access for recruiting. If you don't like us, you don't have to stay with us, but a lot of people do. We got thousands and thousands of members on OU Insider, growing at the fastest rate that we've ever grown. Got the most page views that we ever got in the month of April already. So at this juncture. So, I mean, look, you guys, OU fans, say it every week. Can't thank you guys enough. We're blessed to be doing this for you, with you, working all this type of stuff, covering the University of Oklahoma so that you get the access that you want through OU Insider. Again, $75, 1 year, get you Paramount Plus, get you OU Insider, get you all 250 247 sites. So you can go access Texas, Texas A&M, Alabama, LSU, OSU, all that stuff. You get all their VIP access too if you sign up with us doing that. All right, that's going to do it for this version of the OU Insider Under the Visor Sooners podcast. For Parker Thune, my name is Brandon Drumm. You guys have a blessed day.